We live in a world full of noise. The hum and the traffic, the beeps of alerts and alarms, the thuds as flatmates come home late. But the loudest noises of all are voices. Across the internet, 1 million opinions in 1,000 echo chambers try to make sense of our times. Amidst the noise, how do we make sense of the world that we live in? Whose voice is the best? Here's a hint, says the teacher. It's probably not yours. We share our opinions because we think we're wise. Yet, says the teacher, the truly wise thing to do is to listen. Wise people hear the best alternative viewpoints stated as persuasively as possible before they even open their mouths. And, says the teacher, the wisest of all listen to the best voice of all, the voice of God in heaven. So he says, guard your steps when you go to the house of God. Go near to listen. Do not be quick with your mouth. Do not be hasty in your heart to utter anything before God. God is in heaven and you are on earth. So let your words be few.
In the teacher's time, going to the temple, the house of God, was a lesson in perspective. Like standing at the bottom of a skyscraper or outside a Gothic cathedral, the temple was designed to dwarf those visiting. It reminded worshippers that God was so much bigger than them, beyond their comprehension, and so worthy of awe, wonder, and attention. The architecture itself declared, when God in heaven speaks, you listen. To walk into that space and to not look up was a travesty. But that's what the teacher sees fools doing. They will happily walk in, offer their sacrifices, but don't pay attention to what's going on around them. They only listen with ears half open. They think they know it all already. They kid themselves that what they think and what they have to say is more important than what God has to say to them. But the wise person spends less time pontificating their own opinions about God and more time listening to him. They know that if God in heaven is there, his thoughts vastly exceed even the best of human knowledge on earth, even their own. If God in heaven has something to say to us on earth, the only prudent thing to do is to listen.
Now, we might think that the teacher is simply telling us how to behave in a church service, but he's actually talking to us about an entire way of life, a posture to adopt if we want to be wise. He drives home his point with 2 proverbs. Firstly, he says, a dream comes when there are many cares, and many words make the speech of a fool. Our sleep is troubled, says the teacher, when our lives are filled with cares and busyness. In the same way, he says, when your mouth is careless and busy, trouble will follow. Like Shrek's friend Donkey, we can talk so much that we're only ever one step from foolishness. The teacher knows that sometimes we use words to cover up our insecurities. We fill the awkward silence instead of enduring it. We blag our way rather than admitting that we don't know. We confidently tell a friend what to do when all they really need is a shoulder to cry on.
This tendency to speak can get us into trouble. Listen again to the teacher. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to fulfill it. It is better not to make a vow than to make one and not fulfill it. Do not let your mouth lead you into sin. Our excessive chat can lead us into sin by saying things to God we don't really mean. Perhaps in a time of trouble you've said, God, if you get me out of this mess, I promise I'll serve you my whole life. You probably didn't. Your words proved to be empty. Your mouth led you into sin. There is an alternative, as it says in the New Testament. Let your yes be yes and your no be no, so that you may not fall under condemnation. Or, as the old saying goes, say what you mean and mean what you say.
Words are precious. Words are of great value. Like our friends around us, God would rather hear a simple word with the weight of honesty rather than loads of words that are completely disingenuous. It's not that talking itself is foolish, but it is foolish to love the sound of your own voice. Fools speak more than they listen, and their excessive speech lessens their wisdom. Which leads to the teacher's second proverb. It reads, "Much dreaming and many words are meaningless. Therefore, fear God." Now, this conclusion that God is the one that we should fear is a repeated refrain that the teacher uses. Here he simply means that the way of wisdom is to listen. If we want to find answers in our noisy times, maybe we should stop speaking and start listening. True wisdom seeks out the best, the wisest, the most beautiful of all the voices. Above all, that is the voice of God in heaven, and has the humility to listen.
The Christian conviction is that God is there and that he is not silent. He has spoken in the scriptures, and he has spoken supremely through his Son, Jesus Christ. In Mark's Gospel, Jesus takes his three best friends on a walk. Together they have an experience of God beyond words. Here's how Mark describes it. Jesus was transfigured before them. His clothes became dazzling white. Then a cloud appeared and covered them, and a voice came from the cloud. "This is my Son whom I love. Listen to him." Jesus was the wisest man who ever lived. His wisdom cuts through our opinionated noise. His voice is the most beautiful sound to the human ear. Today, he invites you to listen to him. He can make sense of our world. He offers weary souls rest. So, are you still talking, or are you listening?